very near and dear to my heart as far as motorcycles go. But when I did finally get it, it was kind of like, you know, meeting your heroes and finding out they're assholes. So you can probably see from the title, the bike that I'm referring to is the Agusta Brutale 1000. So this is a little backstory. Since I was a kid, probably just before high school, I've always loved those bikes, and you know, always wanted one. Come around last year, I was finally able to afford one, and you know, it wasn't what I was expecting, let's just say that. Let's start with some of the good stuff. Obviously the bike looks absolutely fantastic. Probably one of the nicest bikes on the market. You know, I had it in that Nardo gray color, which was, in my opinion, that color was meant for that bike. You know, you can argue and say, you know, what about a red RR? I didn't really care for it. Got a really good deal on it, so I didn't really pay the MSRP price. I got it for, let's just say, about $8,000 off MSRP. And the Agusta was having a really aggressive sale around last winter, or I should say this winter. And you know, I figured why not. I had a Ducati Monster. It was a 2023 937 edition. Ended up trading that in. Got pretty good trading credit for it. And I got my MV Agusta. So obviously I got it in the winter. Wasn't really able to test ride it. The bike was brand new. It was a 2024 model, but it was brand new, never sold. I guess that should have said something about the brand. Come on, guys, let's get going. So, anyways, it is what it is. Made the purchase, super happy. I felt like my dream came true, you know? I was like, this is it. This is what I wanted for a really, really long time. Finally got my hands on it. And it just kind of sat in my garage for a little bit, for a couple months until, you know, I'm in Canada here. It's winter, it's freezing, snowstorms, whatever. So about March was the first day I was kind of able to take it out. It's probably about, I don't know, it was like a 7-degree day, which is not exactly warm. 7 degrees Celsius, that's by the way, not Fahrenheit for my American viewers. So I said, you know what, it is what it is. We'll go take it for a spin. Everything was fine. The exhaust note, amazing. Probably one of the best sounding bikes, at least the best sounding European inline 4, let's just say that. You know, it's not quite, doesn't have that growl of an R1, but you know, for an inline 4 it sounds better than like a BMW S1000RR, let's say. Everything was all fine and dandy. We had some more cold days. I wasn't really able to ride it much after that. Put it away. Started getting warmer, and I was like, all right, let's go take this thing for a rip. Let's see what it can do. Obviously, like, the power is phenomenal, right? 208 brake horsepower. Like, you can't complain about power. That's amazing. It wasn't very torquey, you know. The bike really opened up after about I want to say like 6,000 RPM. That's kind of when you felt it. The issue with that, obviously, being such a powerful bike, it you know, by the time you get to 6,000 RPM to feel the actual power of it, you're already going 3 times the speed limit. So you couldn't really use it much, right? Let's just say that. But anyways, we all know that when we're buying 1000cc super sport bikes, right? We're not buying them to cruise, we're buying them to go for a rip every now and then. I'm not really going to talk about comfort too much, because I mean, like, come on, when you're buying a sport bike, you're not buying it for comfort. You don't care about the comfort. I personally don't go on, you know, 3-4 hour touring rides on my bikes. I just go for an hour or 2 max, up some back roads, on some twisties. You can see right now I'm making my way to a twisty road. It'll probably take about 15 minutes to get there, 20 minutes or so, sitting in traffic here. But you know, I don't really care about the comfort too much, because it's not why I ride. I ride for the fun, not for the comfort. So it is what it is. After, you know, one ride it was fine, second ride it was fine. It was by the third ride where I started experiencing some weird, let's say, gremlins with the bike. I would get, you know, I'd be at a traffic light like this, shift into neutral. As soon as I let go of the clutch, bike would shut off. Like I said, okay, it's kind of weird. Never had a bike die on me in neutral. It's not, it's not kind of the whole point of neutral is to be able to just kind of sit there and not have to worry about putting the clutch in. So at first I said, okay, maybe it was a little bit chilly, maybe the engine was cold, oil wasn't flowing properly. I'll give it the benefit of the doubt, right? Then it, on a warmer day, it was probably about, let's say 23 degrees out, and you know, it was about 23 degrees out, nice and warm. I'd probably been riding for about an hour at this point. Pulled up to the light, bike shut off. I said, okay, this is kind of weird. Next light, bike shut off again. All in neutral, by the way, not in first gear. You know, green light was on. It's not like the, you know, it's not like I forgot to shift it out of gear or whatever. It was in neutral, lights on, still getting power. So this must have happened about 4 or 5 times on me now. And obviously you can tell my frustration. I just paid $26,000 for this bike and it's not working properly. When you pay that kind of money, you're expecting the thing to at least function. The basic functions should be working, you know what I mean? If I shift into neutral, it should be neutral, not, you know, first gear plus. So, you know, it happened so many times. I said, okay, it is what it is. I'll do some research, see if there's anything online. Obviously with MV Agustas, if you're very familiar with them, good luck finding any information. It's very difficult. Yeah, it's out there, but it's very uncommon. And you know, most of the people that own these bikes, they're not really riding them. They're more of a showpiece, either in their house, in their garage. You know, no one's, I shouldn't say no one, but very rarely do you find people that are doing crazy mileage on MV Agusta. It's not very common. You know, a lot of used ones that you'll see are a few years old. They only have under 100 kilometers on them, which is crazy. That's like what's like one ride for me, or 2 rides. But yeah, so the thing that really did me in was one day I went to go turn the bike on. Obviously, bike was in neutral at the time. Obviously, you can't even start both bikes in first gear, newer bikes anyways. And you know, for some reason there was power going to the rear wheel and the bike almost took off on me. It fully lunged forward, like a full-on, like proper jerk forward, as if the thing was just ready to go, as if I was about to do a launch. Luckily I was sitting on the bike. Usually when I start my bikes, I'm not really sitting on them. I just let them warm up for a couple minutes before I go for a ride. But, you know, I happened to be sitting on it that one time, thankfully, and I was able to catch it. I was able just to kind of quickly grab the front brake, make sure the bike wasn't going anywhere, and I kind of just shut it off. That kind of did it in for me because, like, you know, I'm spending all this money on what's supposed to be a fantastic, like, dream bike, and I've, you know, dreamed about this bike for God knows how long. And this is kind of this is how it was, you know what I mean? It's like meeting your favorite celebrity and they're just a piece of shit to you. This is exactly how this bike was. So, you know, obviously parts availability for MV Agusta is not great. And don't get me wrong, I did my research beforehand and I was aware of sort of some of the issues I could encounter, but what I wasn't expecting was to encounter these issues at 100 kilometers on the odometer. Like, that's kind of crazy, if you ask me. You know, if my bike was high mileage, it's one thing, but I haven't even broken the bike in yet, and it's already giving me these kind of stupid issues. And I said, you know what? I started shopping around, and of the 5 dealerships that I contacted for trade-in, because I wasn't really sure at the time what I wanted, I was sort of in between either an M1000R BMW, a Ducati V4 Streetfighter. I'm a big naked guy fan, if you can't tell. The Aprilia Tuono V4. You know, I was looking at kind of all the exotic Italian bikes, and I also looking at KTM Super Duke, but I figured, you know what, I love KTM, but with their financial situation right now, I'm just kind of trying to see how they're going to bounce back. Obviously, they have some, you know, the new 1390. It might not look the prettiest, but it's a fantastic bike. Their new RC 990R, like, that thing is amazing. You know, can't go wrong with that. Like, KTM makes fantastic bikes. But again, just given the financial situation, I didn't want another MV Agusta issue. So that's why I was kind of like, you know what, let me stay away from KTM. I love Ducatis personally. Like I said, I had a Monster, and within a couple months of riding the MV Agusta, I regretted getting rid of my Monster, because I was like, this thing, it was so fun to ride. It's obviously very easy to ride. Not that the MV wasn't, like, for a bike with 208 horsepower, I had very good street mannerisms. Like, through traffic, it was okay. It did get extremely hot on that bike, even like when it was colder out. But you know what? It's a hyper naked. You know what I mean? You can't expect it to be running like a little 125. So that's fine. All that stuff is expected. But again, you know, obviously for me, owning a bike, especially an expensive one, like, it's the whole point of it is to be able to ride it. And if I can't ride it, it's no good to me. I don't know about you, but I haven't reached the tax bracket yet where, you know, I can have a bike as art in my living room. Maybe one day that's probably what I'll end up doing, is get an MV Agusta just for that. You know, have it in my living room as a display, nice little showpiece. You know, $30,000-$40,000 art. Why not? If you can afford it, go for it, right? So that's the thing. I started looking around, and I said, you know what? I saw there's a dealership here in Ontario. It's called GP Bikes. If you live around here, I'm sure you've heard of them. They're massive. They had a nice demo Streetfighter V4 2025 model, and I said, you know what? I want to get this bike. Let me upgrade to this bike. Contacted my insurance company. For some reason, they did not want to insure me for that bike. Little backstory about my riding. I've done, you know, most of my riding has been off-road or on track. I've only been riding the streets for about 3 years now. So I guess for insurance, you know, trying to get the most powerful naked bike on the market with 3 years of riding experience is not their best thing. Even though I'm fully licensed, I have got my full M license and everything. But you know, insurance was like, yeah, you know what, we're not really going to insure you on this bike right now. So I said, okay, the next best thing, in my opinion, is this right here, which is the Ducati Streetfighter V2S. Why did I go for the S model? Because GP Bikes gave me a good deal on it. I paid about $20,000 plus tax for it. Got the Olin suspension. You know, I'm sure on the road you're not really going to notice the Olins too much, but I do plan on tracking this bike in the future. So I figured, you know, having the Olins would be a good plus. Why not? I got it for not much more than the standard V2. So I figured, let's just get the S. My girlfriend doesn't like to ride with me anyways, so I'm on my own most of the time when I'm riding. So I didn't really, I don't need the passenger pegs or the pillion seat. And to be honest with you, the bike looks 1,000 times better without that stuff. So this is how I ended up with this bike. I've had it for about a month now, and I've already put, as you can see, 953 kilometers on it. So I do a decent amount of riding. I've taken this thing on little 2-hour road trips, and I'm not going to say it's the most comfortable thing for a 2-hour ride. You know, if I have to go across country, this would not be my first choice. I can guarantee you that. But honestly, for what this is, you're kind of leaned over slightly forward. You're not really, it's not really an upright position. It's kind of it makes in between an aggressive sport bike position and sort of an upright position. So my Monster was sort of like this. This bike, you kind of naturally lean forward and you got some weight on the front end, which obviously gives you a lot better front end stability for those nice fun turns. And that's exactly what this is. This as a road bike is amazing. Anybody that tells you that you need 1000cc for the road, you don't. Believe me, I've had it. You do not need a 200 horsepower hyper naked or hyper bike for the road. It's not going to do you any good. It's, you know, you're going to find most of the time you're just twisting the throttle and that's it. I actually like to go on turns. You know, this is fun, but it gets boring. So, this is why I ended up with the Streetfighter V2S. So honestly, don't listen to all the haters that tell you, oh, it's got, you know, like 20 less horsepower or whatever it is. Who gives a shit? I'm telling you, this thing on the road, you're not going to notice that little bit of horsepower. The old Streetfighter, I almost pulled the trigger on one of those because they had one. It was like $15,000 plus tax for a Gen 1 Streetfighter, 2025, I want to say. It was a 2024 model. But I was like, you know what? This is the one that I want. I'll pay the extra $4 or $5 grand to get this one. Because on the road, this thing has, like, I'm in 4th gear right now. If I twist the throttle, I'm going to hit this car in 2 seconds. That's how much torque this thing has. It is fantastic. Like, on the road, this is what you want. You don't need, I'll show you guys up ahead here, just how fast you can get around people and, you know, whatever the case may be. Brakes are fantastic, by the way. No complaints there, as you can see. But yeah, torque on this thing is, honestly, it's unlimited. It's available from about 2000 RPM and it just never stops. Even if I'm in 4th gear right now, this is a couple blind turns here, so I don't want to really... That was 4th gear. And I didn't even have to downshift, nothing. And I'm flying. The older Streetfighter, from what I know, it's kind of very similar to the MV Agusta in a sense where a lot of the power is made up high, or mid-range to up high. And you know, this thing is, honestly, it's phenomenal. If you haven't ridden it, don't write it off. Believe me, don't listen to all the haters online that tell you, no, this is. It's way worse than the old one. It's really not. It's really not. It's fantastic. You know, this bike is about, I think it's about 40 pounds lighter than what the old one used to be. So that little dip in horsepower, you're honestly not going to feel. But what you are going to feel is this weight. You know, I had an RC 390 back in the day. And this does not feel much different than that, let me tell you. Obviously, it's a bit heavier, but what I'm trying to get at is, like, the bike itself is very small and compact, super lightweight. You can easily move it around. It's not gonna, you know, give you a hard time in slow maneuvers in a parking lot. This is not a Harley. Like, it's phenomenal. Let's talk more about this. So let's compare this to the MV Agusta. Obviously, the Brutale 1000, 208 horsepower. This is about 120 horsepower from my understanding. This has about, I think the torque numbers are actually very similar between the two bikes. But the difference is, the torque here is obviously available much lower in the rev range. You don't have to rev it out very high to get what you want out of it. What else we got here? So comfort, this is far more comfortable than the Agusta Brutale. But again, like I said, well, these bikes are not meant for comfort. They're meant for, you know, spirited rides, back roads, the track. If you're ballsy enough to take something like this on the track, obviously not cheap, so going down is a little bit, it would sting a little bit, let's just say that, to make it easy. I've crashed many rental bikes on the track, and you know, it's peace of mind, because honestly, you don't have to really worry about taking a broken bike home. You just gotta pay for the repairs at the track that it's usually between $200 and $500. That's kind of what my experience has been with crashes on track. And that's it. You don't have to take home a